They told you it was random, that the strange alignments, the repeating numbers, the uncanny moments of déjà vu were just tricks of perception noise in the data stream of life. But what if each coincidence was not noise at all, but a signal, a breadcrumb sent from a version of you that already knows how the story ends? There was once a woman named Clara. One morning, her phone rang. No name, no voice, only silence. Seconds later, her favorite childhood song, one she hadn't heard in decades, began playing on the radio. The melody struck something ancient in her chest. She stepped outside to clear her mind and saw a stranger pass with a butterfly tattoo, exactly the design she had drawn in her diary years ago and never showed anyone. That night, she opened a forgotten book and found a letter from her grandmother inside. A message written long before she was born. You already know. Just trust the path. Coincidence. Maybe, or maybe something was trying to reach her through the folds of time. We were taught that time moves like an arrow past behind, future ahead. Yet physics and mysticism whisper the same rebellion the arrow loops. The future is not waiting somewhere, it's already humming in another layer of vibration. Another you already healed, already whole is broadcasting through the static. And those synchronicities you notice, they're transmissions from that frequency, the quantum echo of your own becoming. Each time a pattern appears, an unexpected meeting, a phrase that mirrors your thought, a number that won't stop showing up. It's not a random hello from the universe. It's a living feedback loop, a two-way transmission. The field is observing how you respond, because your response decides whether the timeline expands or dissolves back into silence. So pause for a moment. What if the dozen coincidences you brushed off today were missed messages from your own future, quietly trying to guide you home? That silence at the end of Clara's story isn't emptiness, it's listening. The same way a radio waits for the right frequency before the music begins. The field around you waits for coherence. You might think of the universe as a stage and yourself as a performer upon it. But what if that's backward? What if the stage itself is alive, breathing, sensing, adjusting to every movement you make? The ancient mystics spoke of this as divine reciprocity, the dance between energy and awareness. Modern science calls it feedback systems that shift and self-correct according to the information they receive. And you, friend, are a feedback loop wearing human skin. When you think, when you feel, when you decide, your field sends us signals. Microscopic pulses of electromagnetic intention ripple outward. But what few realize is that the universe responds in kind. The atoms in the air rearrange. Probability itself bends to accommodate your resonance. Not metaphorically, mathematically. Pause here. Imagine standing before an invisible mirror that reflects not your appearance, but your state of coherence. When you're centered, clear, grounded, aligned, that mirror amplifies light. You see patterns, synchronicities, meaningful coincidences appearing in rapid succession. But when your signal scatters, when fear, self-doubt, or exhaustion distort the wave, the reflection becomes static. The feedback slows, the field grows quiet, not out of punishment but calibration, waiting for your broadcast to steady again. Every decision becomes a tuning fork. You shift slightly, and the field takes note. The question is never if the field hears you. It always does. The question is, what version of you is it hearing right now? Think of consciousness as an orchestra, each emotion an instrument. Joy strikes a clear violin note that the universe can echo instantly. Anxiety sends a muffled drumbeat that fades before reaching resonance. The composition changes moment by moment, and the field harmonizes with whatever you conduct. Here's where it becomes practical. The next time a synchronicity flashes a phrase on a billboard, a melody looping in your head, A name repeated by strangers. Pause before analyzing it. Instead, ask yourself, what was I just feeling? Because that emotion is the frequency. The field just mirrored back. You aren't merely noticing coincidence, you're watching resonance take form. Quantum experiments hint at this responsiveness. In some studies, even unobserved particles behave differently, depending on the emotional state of nearby participants. Scientists may argue causality, but mystics call it correspondence. What we send, we summon, and still, there's a deeper layer. The field isn't a distant cosmos responding to you, it's an extension of you. Your heartbeat radiates measurable energy several feet beyond the body, interlacing with other fields, forming invisible lattices of communication. Every time you laugh, sigh, or ache, you're composing reality in microcurrents. So perhaps the question isn't whether the universe speaks back, it's whether you've learned to listen in its language vibration. Imagine walking through your day as a transmitter tuned to clarity. You think of someone, and they appear. You envision opportunity, and a door opens. This isn't superstition, it's synchronization. The field reflects coherence faster than logic can explain, yet the reflection is neutral. It does not judge or choose sides. If you radiate worry, it will faithfully sculpt more reasons to worry. If you pulse gratitude, it builds experiences that confirm gratitude's reality. In this sense, the field is both mirror and mentor. It reveals the contents of your consciousness not to reward or punish, but to help you see what you're broadcasting. When people say, "The universe sent me a sign," they often miss the other half. You sent it first. The field is only returning your frequency, translated into form. So when coincidence strikes, don't ask, "What does this mean?" Ask, "What am I echoing?" Because every echo holds a message. The universe doesn't just hear you, it remembers you. And as your memory of who you really are grows stronger, the field grows louder in response. You can feel the mirror still humming from the last echo, can't you? That shimmer in your chest after realizing the universe is listening, that sensation is not imagination, it's entanglement, the point where perception and creation meet. And it leads us to the next revelation. Time isn't a line you walk across. It's a field you stand within. From childhood, you were taught to picture life as a timeline, past behind, future ahead. Now as the fleeting moment between, but that model was built for clocks, not consciousness. Quantum physics and the mystic heart of every ancient teaching whispers another geometry. Time folds. Every moment coexists, layered like pages of the same book pressed together. You don't move through them, you tune between them. Imagine your life as a library of frequencies. In one layer, you're already living the dream you long for. In another, you're still searching. In another, you've given up entirely. Each frequency hums simultaneously, waiting for your awareness to pick a shelf. Every thought, emotion, and decision you make is a selection, a retrieval code that tells the field which version of reality to stream next. When you remember a joyful moment, your brain doesn't replay the past. It reactivates the frequency of that timeline, calling its pattern into the present. When you worry about tomorrow, you dial into a potential that vibrates with fear, feeding energy into that future until it ripens into form. This is not fantasy, it's participation. In experiments like the delayed choice observation, photons behave differently depending on when they're observed, even if that observation happens after they've moved. The implication observation doesn't just influence the present, it rewrites the past that led here. Translation: your awareness now can reach backward and forward simultaneously. The past is not gone, the future is not distant. Both respond to the vibration of your attention right now. So what, then, are synchronicities? They are collisions of these layers where two timelines overlap long enough for you to glimpse the seam. You think it's coincidence, but it's correspondence between the self that remembers and the self that's remembering. You might recall a day that felt strangely fated. Everything aligned: the right person, the right song, the right word at the right moment. In those moments, your inner frequency matched a future that was already singing your name. The result was not random, it was resonance made visible. Time, you see, doesn't flow, it flickers. It's a holographic film of infinite frames, and consciousness is the light that illuminates one sequence at a time. The faster your vibration, the clearer your intention, the smoother the real. That's why flow states feel timeless. That's why déjà vu feels like remembering something that hasn't happened yet. Because in a sense, you are. Consider this: your future self isn't waiting in some cosmic distance. It's already present as a vibration higher in the stack. When you align with it emotionally and energetically, your timelines start to overlap. That overlap is what we call guidance. It feels like intuition, luck, or divine timing, but it's simply the frictionless interaction between two coherent states of you. Now pause and ask if the future already exists. What does free will mean? The paradox resolves itself when you realize free will is frequency selection. You're not creating from nothing. You're choosing which already existing pattern to experience. You are the needle on the record deciding which groove to play. And here lies the quiet power hidden in every present moment. This now is a command center, not a consequence. Each breath, each perception, each emotion sends coordinates to the quantum field saying, lock onto this version. When you shift, even slightly, toward gratitude, toward courage, toward stillness, the entire geometry of your timeline adjusts to accommodate the new signal. You are not moving toward your destiny. You're magnetizing it toward you through resonance. The path unfolds because your vibration invites it. So the next time you sense repetition, a pattern looping through days or years, don't assume you're stuck in time. You may simply be replaying the same frequency. Change the song, and the future reorganizes itself around the new melody. Because time isn't waiting ahead of you. It's listening, right here, ready to fold toward whatever note you choose to sing next. You can feel it now. Can't you? The hum beneath the clock's ticking, the subtle pulse inside silence itself. That rhythm isn't random. It's communication. The universe speaks, not in words, but in waves. Every synchronicity you experience, each repeated number, recurring symbol, perfectly timed encounter is the field whispering in the only dialect it knows: vibration. It speaks in patterns, not paragraphs. In resonance, not reason. Think of resonance as the alphabet of the invisible. When two frequencies vibrate in harmony, they amplify each other. A tuning fork sings louder when struck beside another tuned to the same note. Likewise, your consciousness hums more brightly when it encounters an external pattern that matches its internal tone. That moment of recognition, that small electric click inside your body, that's the translation. The field is saying, we hear you. But most people only half listen. They chase meaning like hunters of riddles. What does 1111 mean? What does seeing butterflies symbolize? They miss the point that the meaning is not in the object, but in the resonance it provokes. The symbol is not the message, it's the mirror. When you notice a synchronicity, pause before translating it into human language. Let it speak through sensation first. How does your chest feel? Does it expand, tighten, flutter? That physical response is the true signal, because your body is the antenna through which the field decodes itself. You see, the heart is not poetic metaphor, it's physics. Studies show its electromagnetic field extends several feet beyond the body, constantly interacting with external energies. When that field encounters a frequency that harmonizes with your dominant state, it vibrates differently. You feel it as emotion, intuition, recognition. That's the field nodding in agreement. And here's where the mystery turns practical. The more coherent your internal state, the more fluent you become in this language. Coherence is when thought, emotion, and nervous system are aligned when you're not at war with yourself. In that alignment, your signal becomes crisp. The field doesn't need to shout to get your attention. Subtle winks suffice. So many people plead for signs while broadcasting noise. They demand clarity from the universe while looping static in their minds. But the field doesn't respond to volume, it responds to precision. When your signal clears, the communication accelerates. You'll find yourself thinking of someone moments before they text you, hearing lyrics that answer the question you never voiced, stumbling upon symbols that feel designed for you. They are, in Rupert Sheldrake's concept of morphic resonance, similar patterns reinforce one another across space and time. The more often a pattern occurs, the easier it becomes for that pattern to repeat, applied to your life. This means the more you align with gratitude, the stronger the field's response to gratitude becomes. The more you align with fear, the more evidence fear manufactures to prove itself true. The field learns your language through repetition. Now imagine upgrading that language from unconscious reaction to deliberate creation. You start noticing patterns not as random anomalies, but as feedback on your frequency. You learn that every repeating theme, every kind of person you attract, every challenge that cycles back isn't cosmic cruelty, it's curriculum. The universe is fluent in reflection. Let's ground this further. Suppose you keep encountering the symbol of a key in dreams, in movies, even in graffiti. Rather than hunting for external meaning, you pause and feel what unlocks within you. Maybe freedom, maybe readiness. The moment you feel the answer instead of think it, the field registers comprehension. And once you understand its language, it evolves the conversation. The symbols will change because you've graduated to a new dialect of awareness. Here's the paradox: once you truly listen, you no longer need the signs as confirmation. You start moving with the rhythm rather than waiting for it. Synchronicity becomes less of an event and more of an atmosphere. You live inside the conversation, and when that happens, every encounter becomes translation, every silence becomes dialogue, every breath becomes code, because the field's native tongue isn't English or mathematics. It's coherence, the music of matching frequencies calling each other home. So if you wish to hear the universe more clearly, stop shouting your desires into the void. Start tuning your vibration until the void sings back. You've felt it, haven't you? That uneasy quiet that follows a season of signs, the sudden stillness after the universe once spoke in thunderclaps. One day, everything hums in synchronicity. The next, silence. No repeating numbers, no coincidences, just static and second-guessing. But that silence, my friend, is not absence, it's feedback. Every system that evolves passes through cycles of signal and stillness. A heartbeat expands and contracts. A wave crests, then withdraws. The same field that once overflowed your life with synchronicities now waits for you to stabilize. Because if the signs never paused, you'd never learn to hear your own frequency beneath the noise. Silence is how the universe measures your coherence. It's not withholding messages. It's waiting to see if you can carry the vibration without external confirmation. Can you still trust when the patterns disappear? Can you still walk in alignment when the feedback fades? Think of it like tuning a radio. When your dial is slightly off, you hear fragments of music, coincidences breaking through static. But once you find the perfect frequency, the song plays effortlessly. If you twist the knob again, trying to chase more signals, you lose the station altogether. The silence isn't punishment. It's proof that you're off by a fraction of a hertz. And here's where it gets personal. When people say, the universe has gone quiet, what's really happening is this: their inner field has fallen out of sync. Their thoughts race one way, emotions another, nervous system spinning between. The field cannot mirror chaos, it mirrors coherence. Until the system realigns, the feedback halts. You may call it confusion, stagnation, or loss of faith. But the truth is gentler. The silence is simply your signal waiting to become readable again. Pause. Listen not outwardly, but inwardly. Feel for the subtle hum beneath your ribs. Your body still broadcasts. Even when your mind feels disconnected, your cells are singing. It's you who stopped hearing. The field is patient. It never stops transmitting. It only lowers the volume when your receiver is overwhelmed by static fear, doubt, distraction, overanalysis. Think of those emotions not as failures, but as filters. Each time you clear one through breath, stillness, or acceptance, the reception sharpens. So if you've been praying for a sign and hearing nothing, consider that the silence is the sign. The field may be inviting you to slow down enough to detect the frequencies that words can't carry. Because not every transmission arrives as light. Some arrive as space. There's a wisdom in withdrawal. When the field retracts, it's not rejection, it's recalibration. In that pause, your nervous system resets, your energy field rewires, and your next timeline prepares its coordinates. What feels like delay is often alignment catching up. We tend to equate movement with progress, but in the quantum field, stillness is the ultimate motion. It's where probabilities stabilize before collapsing into form. That's why monks, mystics, and scientists alike return to silence. It's the womb of manifestation, the fertile void where future selves gestate. So don't rush to fill the quiet. Don't assume you've lost the connection. In truth, the connection has become subtler, more intimate, closer than breath. The universe is whispering now, not shouting, because it trusts that you can finally hear the softer tones. Let the silence reintroduce you to yourself. Feel your own presence as the answer you were seeking. That hum in the stillness is your next frequency loading. And when the signs return, and they'll arrive cleaner, sharper, more deliberate. Because you will have earned fluency in the quiet. Silence is not the field ignoring you. It's the field listening for the steadier version of you that's learning to speak without words. That silence you learn to embrace becomes the threshold to something deeper. The discovery that feeling itself is physics. That emotion is not a side effect of consciousness. It is the circuitry through which consciousness moves. You've been told emotions are intangible, soft, subjective. But in truth, every feeling is measurable energy, a vibration with frequency, amplitude, and pattern. The heart emits an electromagnetic field more powerful than the brain's, radiating several feet in all directions. That field changes depending on whether you're grateful or afraid, coherent or chaotic. The universe doesn't decode your words. It reads that broadcast. When your aligned heart steady, breath slow, mind present, the field around you becomes ordered. Coherence forms, and coherence is language the quantum field understands. It's the difference between whispering your intention into a storm and singing it into still water. In one, the message scatters. In the other, it travels cleanly, rippling outward through the matrix of reality. This is why emotional hygiene is energetic hygiene of mind. Every unprocessed fear or suppressed grief creates interference, tiny distortions in your signal. The field doesn't judge it. It simply reflects what it receives. If your dominant vibration hums with scarcity, you'll encounter timelines that confirm it. If you anchor in peace, opportunities matching peace start appearing seemingly out of nowhere. This isn't mystical thinking. It's biofeedback at cosmic scale. Your nervous system, endocrine signals, and magnetic field are instruments playing in an unseen orchestra. Each thought strikes a note. Each emotion sustains it. The universe listens, harmonizing or clashing in response. Think of moments when you felt inexplicably at ease and life unfolded effortlessly, traffic lights turning green, people smiling without reason, events aligning with uncanny precision. You weren't lucky. You were coherent. Your emotional field was in resonance with its own design, and reality responded in kind. Now imagine the opposite those days when nothing flows, when obstacles multiply, when your timing feels cursed. That's not punishment, it's discordance. Your internal instruments playing different keys, one part of you reaching for expansion, another clinging to safety. The field mirrors the mixture. The result feels like chaos. But here's the hidden gift: emotion, unlike circumstance, is fully within your reach. You can't control the entire field, but you can regulate your vibration through breath, attention, and choice. Every time you transmute fear into curiosity, anger into truth-telling, or shame into self-compassion, the magnetic tone of your heart changes. The broadcast clears, the feedback refines. Scientists like HeartMath researchers have observed this resonance effect. When a person enters heart coherence, their brain waves synchronize, cortisol levels drop, and others nearby begin matching their rhythm unconsciously. The field responds instantly to emotional order. This suggests that healing is not achieved through thought alone, but through embodied frequency alignment. So when you seek to manifest or align, start not with what you want, but with how you feel. The feeling is the fuse. The emotion is the physics. You can't tune to abundance while vibrating in anxiety. You can't magnetize love while radiating unworthiness. The field will always harmonize with the frequency, not the wish. Let's reframe emotion as guidance, not interference. Sadness isn't failure, it's data. It tells you where your signal has dimmed. Joy isn't indulgence, it's resonance. Proof that the field is amplifying your clarity. Even anger can be sacred. It shows where your boundaries distort your flow. Every feeling is feedback, a real-time indicator of your alignment. When you stop judging your emotions and start decoding them, you reclaim the instrument. You become a conscious conductor of your own frequency. The more fluently you feel, the more precisely the universe can answer. Because here's the paradox: the field doesn't care what story you tell. It only listens to the music beneath it. So the next time emotion swells like a wave, don't rush to fix it. Let it play. Breathe through the vibration until it stabilizes into coherence. That coherence becomes command, and once emotion and awareness move as one, reality stops resisting. It starts resonating. You can feel it gathering. Can't you? The momentum that begins when emotion meets awareness? The field hums again, waiting for your next move. Because synchronicities aren't just signs, they're invitations. Each one is a door half open, watching to see if you'll walk through. Most people hesitate. They analyze the doorway until it closes. They pray for guidance but freeze when guidance arrives, disguised as risk. Yet in the quantum field, hesitation is static. It tells reality, not yet. Action, on the other hand, is signal amplification. It tells the field, I'm ready. Every synchronicity you notice is a feedback pulse from a timeline that has already unfolded. When you act on it, you stabilize that probability. When you ignore it, it fades back into potential. The choice is never between right and wrong, It's between collapse and coherence. Think of your future self sending coordinates through signs, aligning chances so perfect they appear impossible: a meeting, a dream, a word overheard. If you respond with movement, an email sent, a conversation begun, you bridge timelines. The wave collapses into form. If you wait, the wave dissolves and another path begins to form elsewhere. Consider a moment from your own story when life seemed to whisper, "Go here, call them, start now." You felt it in your body, a small surge of recognition. That was your field aligning with a signal from the future. The longer you wait, the weaker that resonance becomes. Not out of punishment, but because vibration decays without motion. The universe is not demanding certainty from you. It's asking participation. Action is language. A movement is a message clearer than any mantra. When you move in faith, your body becomes the antenna through which timelines anchor. Each step emits proof of belief, stronger than thought alone. You can see this in small moments. You think of someone, reach out, and they reply, "I was just thinking of you." You sign up for a class and meet the collaborator who changes your direction. The connection was always there. Action tuned the frequency so you could perceive it. This is why people who take aligned action seem to experience constant luck. They're not favored by chance. They're fluent in response. Their readiness keeps the field alive around them. Here's the paradox: action must come from coherence, not desperation. Forced movement carries noise. Inspired movement carries rhythm. The field can tell the difference. One vibrates with fear's tension, the other with faith's release. When you move from fear, the path fragments. When you move from resonance, doors appear where walls once were. You don't need grand gestures to prove your alignment. Sometimes the invitation is subtle: a book that catches your eye, a conversation you feel drawn to join, a sudden urge to clean, write, or walk a new path home. These are micro-invitations. Each one tests your willingness to trust the dialogue. Respond gently but decisively. Each yes builds momentum. Each step deepens coherence. The universe, like any relationship, grows more intimate with consistency. The more you answer, the more it speaks. The more you move, the clearer its direction becomes. Eventually, the line between sign and self disappears, you and the field co-authoring a single rhythm of emergence. And when you reach that level of dialogue, hesitation feels impossible. You don't wait for proof because movement itself is proof. You act, and the mirror ripples in agreement. So the next time synchronicity knocks through coincidence, intuition, or unexpected opportunity, don't wait for certainty. Step into conversation with the unknown. The field is listening for footsteps, not questions, because reality doesn't reward those who wait. It unfolds for those who respond. You can sense it now, how each action vibrates beyond its moment, how the field folds and adjusts as you move through it. But what if the one watching you walk through those doors is not the universe at all? What if it's you, observing from another angle of time? This is where the mirror turns inward. We call it the observer effect. The strange fact that, in quantum experiments, a particle's behavior changes the moment it is observed. It's as if reality waits for awareness before deciding what to become. But awareness isn't limited to your present self. Consciousness doesn't obey the same boundaries as matter. So what if your future self, the version already living the outcome you're moving toward, is observing you now? What if their attention is what shapes the probabilities around you? Imagine it, a thread of light stretching through time, connecting this present moment to a point where you've already arrived. Every intuitive nudge, every coincidence, every sudden alignment is that thread vibrating as the two ends of you communicate. Your future self sends impulses through the fabric of reality, tiny distortions that appear as signs. You, Here, feel them as déjà vu, guidance, or luck. The conversation is constant. You just forgot how to translate it. According to physicist David Bohm, all matter and consciousness are woven into what he called the implicate order, a hidden structure where everything is enfolded within everything else. From that perspective, your future self isn't far away. It's folded into you, encoded in the same field, waiting for coherence to make contact possible. The moment your emotional and energetic frequency matches theirs, the signal becomes clear. You don't summon your future, you remember it. And here's where the mystery becomes intimate. The observer effect isn't mechanical, it's relational. Observation is a form of love. To observe something is to give it existence through attention. Your future self isn't analyzing you, it's loving you into alignment. Each synchronicity is its way of saying, I see you, keep going. Pause and feel that. The universe is not testing you, it's tracking you, every micro-adjustment of heart and thought, recalibrating the bridge between timelines. When you trust a gut feeling, when you follow a whisper with no proof, that's collaboration between dimensions. The observer becomes the participant. The mirror and the image merge. Sometimes this guidance feels unmistakable. You make a choice that defies logic, and the world instantly rearranges to support it. Other times it feels like loss, doors closing, relationships ending, paths dissolving. Those moments are not abandonment, they are course corrections. Your higher self collapses unaligned timelines before they collapse you. You see, love from beyond time isn't always gentle, it's precise. It burns illusions so that coherence can survive. It prunes your life to create space for futures that can sustain the frequency you're becoming. The ego calls this chaos. The soul calls it architecture. Here's a practice. The next time life rearranges itself, suddenly opportunity gone. Plan interrupted pause before morning. Ask, what timeline just closed? Then listen for what new vibration is trying to emerge. You might feel it as a soft pull, a word, an image, a breath that feels wider than before. That's your future self tuning the dial. This awareness changes everything. You stop pleading for signs because you realize the watcher is already within you. You stop fearing uncertainty because you sense the intelligence behind each fluctuation, and you start to see that every coincidence, every silence, every detour is the same message written in different languages. You are being seen from ahead, so when you next feel the ease of destiny upon you, when goosebumps rise for no reason, when a phrase pierces through your day as if scripted, remember you are both the experiment and the observer. You are the wave and the watcher that collapses it into form. Reality doesn't happen to you. Reality happens through you as your future self remembers itself back into being. You can feel the gaze of that future self now, a quiet, unwavering attention that both steadies and exposes you. Because once the mirror of observation opens, it doesn't just reflect your light, it reveals your shadows too. And this is where many falter. When the universe begins to rearrange, it often does so through discomfort. The field tests not your worth, but your willingness to stay coherent when things fall apart. We call it chaos. The mystics call it refinement. Quantum systems call it decoherence, the temporary scattering of order before a new structure emerges. It's the same pattern everywhere. A star collapses before it shines. A seed breaks before it sprouts. A soul fractures before it remembers. The breakdown isn't betrayal, it's acceleration. So when synchronicities vanish or twist into contradiction, don't assume you've lost alignment. You may be entering a recalibration zone. The field increases pressure to test the integrity of your vibration. Every pattern you've outgrown begins to dissolve. Every attachment misaligned with your next timeline starts to unravel. It can feel like the world is turning against you. But in truth, it's turning through you, spinning off everything that cannot travel forward. This is why some call it the dark night. The signs go silent. The feedback loops invert. What once felt guided now feels cruel. Yet this too is conversation. The field is saying, are you sure this is the frequency you choose to sustain? Think of it like thermal expansion. When metal heats, it stretches. When your vibration rises, it expands beyond the structures built at lower frequencies: beliefs, relationships, habits. If you resist that expansion, it cracks. If you surrender, it reforms. Either way, the field will match your movement. You may notice physical symptoms during these recalibrations: fatigue, heightened emotion, strange coincidences flipping from sweet to sour overnight. These are not punishments. They're indicators that timelines are adjusting. Reality is running diagnostics to verify coherence. In these seasons, patience becomes power. The urge to panic or force resolution is natural. But remember, the field can't stabilize what you rush. Your job is to hold resonance, not control sequence. When you meet contraction with presence, the system finds new balance faster. Here's the paradox: the moment you stop needing the test to end, the test ends, because surrender restores coherence. The lesson isn't endurance, it's entrainment. Sometimes the universe will deliver the same pattern through different people until your response changes. That change is the signal it was waiting for. As soon as you act from awareness rather than reaction, the field registers completion and updates your trajectory. This is the alchemy of challenge transformation through resonance rather than resistance. Every emotional spike, every unexpected loss, every broken plan is data. The field watches not what happens, but how you vibrate within it. So when disruption arrives, don't declare failure. Ask instead, what frequency is this testing in me? Is it trust, patience, self-worth? Each test refines one wavelength of your signal until your broadcast is clear enough to carry the next timeline's code. And when you hold stillness through chaos, the universe doesn't applaud, it mirrors. Synchronicities surge again, this time sharper, more specific, because you've proven stability under stress. You've shown the field that your alignment isn't conditional on comfort. That's when manifestation stops being episodic and becomes atmospheric. You live in the dialogue constantly, even when it's quiet. This phase can feel lonely, but it's sacred isolation. The silence is the cocoon between versions of you. The stillness is where wings form. So if everything seems to be falling apart, maybe it's finally rearranging itself to match who you've become. The field never breaks you. It bends you toward coherence. Hold your frequency, because on the other side of every test is a timeline that's been waiting for your signal all along. You can feel it, the weight of those tests slowly lifting, replaced by something quieter, steadier, more luminous. The silence that once felt like loss now feels like listening. The synchronicities have shifted from surprises to symphonies, from isolated winks to constant rhythm. Because something profound has occurred, you've stopped chasing the signs and started becoming one. When you reach this stage, the field no longer needs to convince you. It entrains to you. Your coherence has stabilized into presence so consistent that the universe begins organizing around it. The feedback loops collapse into flow. The future doesn't whisper anymore, it harmonizes. You wake one morning and realize the extraordinary has become ordinary. The right people appear, not because you summoned them, but because you resonate with their frequency. Opportunities unfold, not as miracles, but as mirrors. Even challenges feel different now. They don't pull you under. They recalibrate you faster. You've moved from confirmation to command, from seeking evidence to embodying proof. In physics, coherence amplifies power exponentially. 10 synchronized waves create a surge. 10 10 times stronger than any one wave alone. The same is true here. When thought, emotion, and embodiment align, your energy no longer leaks in contradiction. The field responds instantly because there's no static left to interpret. You've become a clean signal. At this level, manifestation is no longer about effort, it's about recognition. You don't ask the universe, you broadcast clarity, and the field reflects it without delay. Every breath becomes instruction, every heartbeat a code. But coherence doesn't mean control, it means congruence. You stop forcing outcomes and start moving in resonance with what's already true. You realize the field is not separate from you, it is you, experiencing itself through form. This is why enlightened teachers radiate serenity even in chaos. Their inner rhythm has synchronized with the quantum rhythm beneath all matter. They're not escaping reality, they're conducting it. And here's the secret few understand: coherence is contagious. When you hold it, others entrain to it unconsciously. You walk into a room and tension softens. Conversations deepen. Opportunities magnetize. You become a living broadcast of permission. Your frequency becomes the invitation for others to remember their own. That's what it means to be the sign. You are no longer scanning the sky for guidance. You are the constellation itself, guiding others through your presence. You speak less, but everything you say carries weight. You plan less, but everything you touch moves in rhythm. You no longer wonder if you're aligned. You feel alignment living through you. You realize that every moment, every past ache, every coincidence, every silence was training your nervous system to hold this state without collapsing. The tests taught resilience. The signals taught recognition. The waiting taught surrender. Now, awareness has become automatic. Presence is no longer a practice, it's your default frequency. And yet, humility remains essential. The field never stops evolving. The moment you believe you've mastered it, you fall out of tune. Coherence is dynamic, a dance, not a destination. Stay curious. Stay listening. The song never ends. It only changes tempo. So what happens now? When you live as the signal itself, the world bends differently. Synchronicities don't surprise you, they confirm you. Time feels circular, manifestation feels mundane, miracles feel mathematical. You walk through days aware that everything you encounter is an echo of your own vibration. The mind once sought proof. Now the heart simply knows. You've become a walking frequency of remembrance, a transmission of coherence in motion. The future no longer waits ahead, it emanates from within. The field no longer whispers, "Are you ready?" It says, "Welcome home." And with every step you take, new timelines awaken. Reality harmonizes, and creation itself begins to hum the note of your becoming. Because you are not just in the field, you are the field. And the field remembers you. The field is still humming, softer now, like a song fading into distance but never disappearing. You can feel it pulsing under everything, the quiet recognition that all along, it wasn't about learning to manifest. It was about remembering how to listen. When you strip away the terminology quantum, vibration, timeline, you're left with something ancient and simple, awareness responding to awareness, life echoing through itself. The rhythm of a soul rediscovering its own reflection in the mirror of reality. You've come full circle. What began as the mystery of coincidence has unfolded into communion. The butterflies, the numbers, the whispers in silence, they were never external omens. They were your own frequency, calling from beyond the noise, asking you to notice how powerful your attention truly is. Now the signs no longer need to shout. You've learned to hear their subtler language, the tug in the gut, the calm after surrender, the clarity in stillness. You've learned that guidance doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it arrives as ordinary peace, and that peace, that grounded coherence, is the ultimate synchronicity. It's the moment your inner rhythm matches the universe's pulse. It's the space where wanting ends and being begins. So breathe here. Feel how time bends inward, how the future folds gently into the present. Feel how every version of you, from every timeline, converges in this single breath. The ache, the hope, the waiting, all dissolving into awareness itself. This is the paradox of awakening. Once you become the signal, you stop needing proof. You realize the conversation never stops. It just changes frequencies. The universe listens through you now, not to you. You are both transmitter and receiver, question and answer, seed and soil. From here, there's no finish line to cross. Only deepening intimacy with the unseen. Some days, the field will sing loudly. Others, it will fall into silence again. But you'll know better this time. You'll recognize the silence as rhythm. You'll understand that even in stillness, the dialogue continues. So as you step back into the world, into conversations, decisions, chaos, and beauty, carry this quiet frequency with you. Speak from it, act from it. Let it tune the spaces you enter. And when coincidences arise, smile softly, don't chase them. Don't decode them, simply nod in recognition. Because now you know, you are the sign. You are the signal. You are the song the universe was trying to remember.